Today's webinar is about how you can test your SAP PI PO solution a lot easier, and I'll be showing a lot of the demo of what we can do with the system, what's working and what's not. Yes, and if you have any questions along the way, do put them in the chat. I got Casper also monitoring it and helping out. So let's see how that's all turning out. So the agenda is I got 49 slides, which is a lot. So it'll be a bit fast. So there'll probably be things I forget to mention. Then do let me know in the chat if there's something that I jumped a little too fast over. So we'll do some talk about automated testing, why it's a requirement. We'll show some demos, some of the more complex scenarios that we have implemented. What are the latest changes? How can you implement this in your organization? And then we'll share the roadmap about what's happening. So just wanted to make a short warning. This is probably not as it's a little more technical than the other webinars I have. So I have another webinar. You can go to this link, and where I'll do a webinar next week on little less technical, but more about why you want to do testing for a business perspective. So 2 years ago, I was doing physiotherapy. I got this crazy Norwegian guy, and he was using shockwave therapy, which is basically a air pressure gun. He was just hammering my foot, and it hurt pretty bad. But I got an epiphany there that I could actually create a generic test tool that would be able to test all PI messages really fast, and you could do it really generically. So I'll just show you later how this works. I got a team together, and I thought, well, this is a simple tool. It'll not take long to make, but there's still a lot of we now got some customers on it, but there's still room for improvement and places where it can be done even better. So it is a bit challenging just to develop something and implement it in real life. So I guess a myth around developers, I don't know if you agree to this or not, is that message mappings is a good enough way to test. And obviously it's a good tool for development and ensuring that whatever you have done works. But there's some shortcomings in it and reasons why you want to do more testing than just testing these message mappings. So routing is not complete. Sometimes the message mapping have challenges with dynamic attributes, and I think you can actually not set or get values from them because it's not part of the framework. Yeah, and you just compare a single line that you have changed, not the full document, and not with all the other regressions that you have. So it's a good tool for development, but little limited in what it can do for testing. There's two approaches to automated tests. There's the general workflow approach, where you got something like HPLM, IBM Rational, and the smart thing about these tools is you just define a script, place a file here, call this web service, and pick up this response here in this database with these criteria, and verify that it looks correct. That's good. The challenge is it takes a long time to set up, and it's a new language, new way of doing your integration. So whenever you're doing integration, you have to do it mostly 2 times to ensure all of this set up. So that's a little challenging at something that, yeah, is better. And one of my clients recommended that it, or said it was more a record replay scenario, where you're actually just taking messages that already have been processed, collecting these, and then reprocessing them. So it's a lot faster setting up test cases, because you're just verifying existing productive data that it looks the same. So that's something it doesn't cover. It doesn't cover communications, file, SOAP, adapters, everything outside of the PI Java stack. So that's obviously a challenge, but in most of the cases, the errors that you'd see is internally in adapter modules, in methods mappings, in routings, that is not able to follow upgrades or changes that have been done. So how do you automate with ERT? How does this application integration regression tool work? So the way it works is, here we have a list of all the ICOs you have on your agent system. And when I say agent system, think of this as your productive system. It could be other systems where you have this data and want to fetch information there. But in general, let's just say this is your productive system you get from here. And then you select a number of ICOs that you want to do testing on and say, hey, these are the ones that's relevant for me. Then once you've done that, the system will then log into your productive system using the directory API, add modules in the beginning of the processing and the end of the processing. Obviously, there are some exceptions. For instance, when we're talking about some of the bridges, that we cannot do it like that. But this is the general approach for this. Then it will also send a message to this this component that for the next 5 messages or whatever you have said, whenever a message reaches you with this information, do save it and put a mark on this message. And then when the message reaches the receiver channel, it will be saved. And then these 2 messages will be saved. And then you just have to wait until you've received the number of messages that you want. So then you got a test case. And the next thing is you want to test this this test case. And here you simply just press the test case you want to run. And what happens then is we would send the message in on an XI30 protocol. So we are creating an XI30 flow. If you have modules, we'll copy those with those the parameters, send the message in. And because it's an XI30 protocol, we're actually able to override what's going on and send the message in on the correct ICO. So you'd use the same operation mapping, the same receiver system. Once it reaches the receiver system, we have also added a module. This module will save the message, and then we can do a comparison with what we expected and what was the actual result. And we can see there's some differences quite easily here. And we know the state is okay, so we can go in, just double click that line. We'll get an XPath, and then we can just say ignore all elements of this. So in the future, we'll not see anything like this. So that's it. It's a simple tool to test complex scenarios. So that was the short introduction and generic way of how this works. So a little about how we can create test cases. So there's the approach where you're fetching messages, for instance, from your productive system or any other system you have in the landscape, and say this is now my test cases. Then you have the option of getting data from upload data from a file. So you're creating a file with input and output messages and some description about what these messages is. You upload these files or these files into the test case, and then you got a new test case for this. Then you have the ability to promote or edit messages. So you can, there's a message editor, you can edit that, and then you can upload messages. And finally, there is a way where you can say, okay, I've run this test, I know that this is now my target baseline, so I would say this is our new test case we want to run with this data with, or new expected result. So this is just the message editor where you could edit all of the data, and there's a change log so you can see who made which changes when. So no one's able to change data without it's being logged. Long. Oh, okay. Pattern supported. So now we'll just go through a few of the a little more interesting scenarios. So synchronize is pretty easy to do with the above approach, but obviously that doesn't cover all scenarios. So there's a pattern that's an async sync bridge, and the way this works is we actually treat it like a synchronous message. We got a message saved here. We got a message saved just before we send it to the receiving system. Then, and I guess this is also relevant for synchronous communication, we'll put our module in at this this communication channel, and I think in this scenario it's actually a new ICO that we're putting in these information in. So this one links to this one, and then the message is processed in this flow. In ERT we have the option of either saving the response message and then use this for the remaining of the flow, or just say, okay, we got a response, and then process this for the remaining of the flow. So this is stage number 1, stage number 2, stage number 3, stage number 4, and also for synchronous. So let's see if we can get that one working. So here we have our test system, and we would then async. So we got this scenario. We say record messages. We have the option of do it automatically or control each step manually. So we'll do it manually just for the case of this. We're creating a new name for this. We specify here when we're going to run this, which is the ICO that you want to run this on. So we will say start, and then we just need to send the messages in. And async, so I think this is the one. So we can then go in here and we can see, was this the right one? Yeah, I think it was the right one. So we can see how many messages we have received. We see we got 5 inbound, and then that leads to 10 outbound, because we save the message in 2 places in this case. So both before we send it to the target system and after we send it to the target system. So here we can see all the different messages, what they are, what are the, if we drill into this one, we can see the payload of this JSON file. And we can go and edit it. No, gone there. So we'll take here. We will then create a test case on this. So now we just collected the messages we want to specify, we want to test with these data. So here we can then see what are the different test cases we have for this. We got some configuration here done that some has added some ignoring elements. We are using automated comparison type. We are ignoring these dynamic attributes. And then we got some different properties down here. Let's take that later. So we'll just take one of these, we would run it. And we can see the result of this. So we can see these messages has not been sent yet. So there's some batch jobs running in the background, scheduling these things and making sure it runs smoothly and stuff like that. So that's been one of the things that we're working on, improving this stability. So before we just send it in as normal messages, and that was good. But sometimes this can give some challenges. So now we can see that we have run this test and everything looks good. We have here the option of seeing if there's any binary differences in the document. So this one showed up all green. Maybe it's, yeah, I think last time maybe I did some changes there. So if we just take one of these that was an error, we would then see the results. And we can see here that we got a difference here. There's some files that has been changed. We can add this element to our ignore list if we want to do that pretty fast. Or if we know that there's something wrong, obviously we'd have to fix it and run the test again. So we cannot just always just ignore the errors. We would have to do some critical thinking and see if this is correct. Good. The next is the async scenario, and here we are sending in a message. Then it has this bridge module. There's a file communication adapter that is placed on this one, but it's actually never used because the message would be delivered to this one down here. So if we go here, we would then have to find our async scenario. So we got a async bridge here. So we can say we can add or remove modules just pretty easy, just using these buttons up here. We'll record, we'll do it automatically, just so we see that one also. We'll create a new test case where we're saving these in. So we are grouping testing messages or ICOs in a bunch of messages or in a template, and then you can run this multiple times if you want to test specific test cases. So webinar. We want to get 4 messages from each. We're just setting all of this to auto. And if we had many different, we would be able to set up all of this in just one go. So now we have created this data. There's a way you can schedule this and run it at night. So it will first, or at a specific point in time, it will then start collecting these messages. We have then started our recording modules, and then we're just waiting for someone to use our service. And we got some requests here. So we can see we've got 2 messages in and 4 messages out. And we don't want to wait for all 4 messages. We can just create our test case with the data that we have. And then later we can pick up the last ones. So if we have here our test case, we can run it. And here we can see the last results the same way. So we want to view the test case, view the results. So this has been sent, they are now received, and then we'll just wait for the compare job to run. So we can see they are all completed successfully. And see if so we can take the ICO here. So obviously I'm just sending in a text file all the way through and nothing changes there. So I guess it's difficult to see if there's anything that is actually being changed in this scenario. Yes, so this was here we can get the report that has been generated for this test run. I'll just have to get it on the other PC. So here we can see our test case. We can see all the messages that has been run. We can download the message if we wanted to, in and outbound, all the different stages, and we can see if there was any differences in these documents. So this is the template report, and that's also similar reports just for single test cases when you've run them. Then the next module, next thing we just wanted to share is the EDISeperator. This is where you're getting in messages from a partner. They're being sent to the EDISeperator, and then this EDISeperator separates the messages and send them in to that specific channel. Put in your IRT, put in the EDIFACT module, and then you have your operation mapping. So let's try set up a scenario for testing that. So we got a partner here called new partner. Record, do it automatically. We'll just add it to the same template we just created. 3 messages. And because we are using a splitter, we need to send the message in with a splitter ICO also. So instead of using the XI3 serial protocol, we're just sending it, or we're using that one to send the message into this EDISeperator bridge, and then the final message will then process backwards or to the communication channel. So we'll just save, and we'll then go to our template channel. We can see that this one is ready. We'll start it. And then I need to send these messages through. Split So this one, let's try this. So stop and start it. And let's see. Oh, no, not that one. This one. So now we can see we got 2 messages processed here. We will take these. So now we have 2 test cases in this scenario. And we can see here it found out it was EDIFACT messages. It extracted the partner information. And if we then run again, let's just ensure that there's no comparison here. We can see it's not started yet. So we're getting errors now, finally. I wanted to show you this one so we can see here we're getting an error on creation time. We want to add that one. And we can go see if there's any other errors just using this this approach for it. And then if we ran it again, run it out here. So we're getting this information that it's unfinished, and that's just because it's still running, and we have messages that is not completed yet. And here we have the duration. How long time did it take from the start of this message being sent to the receipt of this? So now we can see these are compared successfully. Just because we clicked and added that command. Good. Comparison. We saw XML, JSON. We also support text, EDIFACT, X12, and binary. And I think we saw the binary. And I guess this is pretty useful in the cases where you have something that's a bit strange, just to open the binary screen and see if did I select the binary? Yeah, so here we can have the binary, so we can see what are the bit that is different. So this is quite useful to just compare 2 documents and see are there any binary differences in them, and see did we add some specific character that we cannot see, and that's why it's different. Some of the other features that we have added is when you're sending a message, sometimes you may not want to, sending a test message, you may not want to send this message to the actual receiver, either because the system does not really have the performance, or you're paying per message that you're sending, or it's a partner that you don't want to send this message to. So you have the option of setting a checkmark on the testing configuration, and that'll mean when this message reaches the receiving module, it will just be throw an exception, and then a web service would call and then cancel this message. So it will never be delivered, and it will just be marked as canceled. So this is a pretty interesting feature for those scenarios. And obviously, it only works if you're using asynchronous. If you're using synchronous, it's going to be a little challenging getting the response message back. If you have a message one-to-many message where the message is being split, you may want to, so you have an order and you have order line, and each order line item will then be a separate document for some reason. Then you can specify the path to this order number, and then this would be processed as the in the way the document is ordered. So you'd be comparing the same document with each other. If there was something that was incomplete or didn't match, then it will work with this way. So our preferred way is using GMS to connect to the system, because it's a lot faster. So here, when our message is being saved in the agent system, it will be saved into a GMS queue, and then our testing application would log onto this testing queue, pull the message, and save it for validation. We did see some places and sometimes that it has been a little challenging getting the GMS queue up and working. So we have a backup that's a web service that we will just call to get these messages. But that obviously causes a little of a delay, because you have to wait for a job to run and fetch the messages. And then we faced an issue with some of the GMS messages. All the GMS queue has a limit of 10 megabyte, and if you get above that, it's not able to process the message. So what we're doing in that case is we are taking the message, zipping it, and then we're just adding adding the zip file to the GMS, and I think that's normally a factor of 10 to 20% that the message size is. If we're still above 5 megabytes, there's some performance degradation on big messages, it seems like. So we have a web service that this message will be saved into, and then the agent system will just get information, hey, you got a new message, it's this type, and then it'll call the web service, download the data, and do the comparison based on that. So in the SAP landscape, there's obviously a lot of names that changes throughout the system landscape. You got some messages that's called, or ERP system that's called something in development queue and production, and we want to do mapping of these elements. And you may have partner translation that's also changing. So we have a system. You can just define these mappings, what they are, and how to deal with these things. Yeah, when you're processing data, it will see, hey, there's something wrong in this instance. I don't really know how to process this, and then it will just figure out how to map it based on this template. You also have the option of defining interface transition. So if you're doing a renaming of your objects, you would be able to use this transition for it also, because you can just say, it is not this document, but it is this interface that we'll be using for it. And then obviously there's also a generic fallback approach. So if every system ends in D, Q, and P on the different landscapes, you can just add that as the fallback. What are the recent changes that we've made? So we've added the change tracking tool to it. So this is a part of the IRT application. Change tracking tool is a free tool. So actually, if you if you are downloading IRT, you would be able to, or you'd be able to install this on your system, validate it, and run to see if everything is correct. And you'll be able to see the difference between the different objects. So you can go in and see what are the difference between two message mappings or two iFlows, and see what are the specific parameters that has been changed. So we have using the same version comparison as we're doing in the other cases. So it's really easy to see what has changed. I talked about the performance, and that's been something that we have been working a lot on lately. And I just got a feedback from one of our clients. They were doing an upgrade, and they had run 900 tests messages through, and some of these messages was pretty big. So there's been some challenges around that. Generating the report, making sure they're correct, so one of the interesting challenges we had is if you're sending in a message and it is not processed within a certain period of time, when is it okay that we say we didn't receive this message, or that we're just waiting for it? So that's been one of the things that's been dealing with this. We're working on setting up clusters because a lot of test on development system is clustered. So we need to take advantage of this and make sure, memory consumption is stable and we're not using too much memory. Any questions so far? Then please put them into the chat. I'll go through those then. So the next thing I just wanted to talk about is how you're getting started and how to install this application. So there's two parts of the application. There's the agent that you install on all your PI systems where you want to collect messages on. So yeah, it's 200 kilobytes, something like that. It's just plain PI Java, and so we're not using any frameworks for it, so it's really smooth. And I guess that's an advantage, that it's not a big thing. It's not having a big impact on your, for instance, productive system. It contains a web service you can call for administrating it, saying now I want to record these messages. It contains the adapter module that you're adding in, or that the system is adding to the channels, and then it contains a GMS queue or configuration for a GMS queue, because we're using the built-in GMS of the PI system. Then the other thing we have is the application. This is I think an 80 megabyte file, because it contains a lot of libraries. And this should be installed on your PIPO system, where you are going to do the testing of these applications. So in test or development, you'd install it. As you saw, it's a UI5 application, and it contains the IRT application, all the scheduling jobs and everything like that. Configuration, it is a lot of time configuration is pretty challenging for SAP system, so we wanted to make something that was smooth to configure. So we actually have a wizard you'll just be guided through with, I think it's 4 steps. So we have it here. The only thing you need to have is administrator access or access to change things in your user administration. So you'll go through here, get access to IRT, then you would create the user, then you would create the test system, and a lot of these values would be pre-filled. Then you would specify who is able to do which task. And then finally, it'll just enable you to go and run some tests. So yeah, user access can do this. And yeah, there's some different roles you can assign to users so they can do specific things. If you want them to be able to run tests, or do you want them to be able to create, edit, and modify tests. So how do you get started in 2 hours? So you send an email with the system ID of your SAP system to info@figaf.com, or support. I guess that's probably better. And then you log in, you install the 2 SCAs on your development system. In the beginning, I think it's easier just to do the testing on your development and not connecting to third party, because then you need to get along with the user access and getting more access. So in that perspective, development is a lot easier to get around. Then you want to deploy the application or once you have deployed it, you go to the root of your system /ERT, and then you'd have access to configure it. If you have user admin access, you can do that. Otherwise, you would just go together with the user access and go set everything up. And then you want to run some messages through the development system, record them, run tests on them, and verify that they work. Then next up is obviously you want to test how the agent work. And here you're installing the agent on a separate system, most likely your test system. And then you set it up and start testing with that one also. And then next up is you send an email saying, hey, I want to buy this tool. Then, so roadmap, just wanted to share a little about my roadmap. And obviously this comes with the same disclaimer as SAP has. I'm not just good at writing disclaimers, that this is current thoughts. I'm not sure if it will be like that, but that's the direction that we're going in. So cloud integration is obviously one of the big issues and things that's happening, and we're working on a solution that can do something similar in SAP Cloud Integration, or CPI. Here, instead of adapter modules, it would be scripts that you could add. We're still waiting for the API for it. We have some proof of concepts about how this will work, so we'll see how that goes. But obviously it would, the comparison jobs and everything like that would be much the same. Then what are the different installation types we have? So right now we're just installing on your PI system, but we had some challenges with it. That the database driver and the OpenSQL that we're using is not as powerful as we'd like it to be. So we're going to move to use another way of connecting to the database, and that would mean we would have one generic database connection for all of our products. That means we can create a standalone installation that allow you to run applications. So you just download the application, run it from your local laptop with a built-in database. So I would imagine that will probably take you 5 minutes to download, install, and run. Obviously, you still need to install the production agent components on the system and do configuration there. Then we also would have a standalone still Tomcat, but using whatever database that you want, if we're able to support it. So the built-in database is H2, I think it's called. So it's not a productive scale database, but it has some capabilities. And then we want to run on 7.5, PO 7.5 also, as we do right now. We are skipping the ability to run on 7.4 and 7.31 because then we just have supporting Java 8, which would be a little easier. And since we have the two other options, then I think this is an okay approach for it. And then we would have a cloud version that will help you test the cloud integration. So you can run the test up there. One of the things I've been reading a lot about is this DevOps mentality, which I guess is more like a culture you want to implement, where you are able to create code, change it, and then you want to verify that if it still works or not. And one of the tools in that capability is the ability to run test on whatever code you have. So with that, users would then log on. We would integrate the change tracking tool with it, so we can see if you have made a transport with a message mapping in. It will know it would be these message mappings that need to be tested, these operation mappings, and then it would be these ICOs, so it would know all the things that was actually changed and be able to run the test on this. Obviously, I'm not sure what this would look like, how it would work, and if that is something that customers is looking for. But we're looking for customer inputs on what would be relevant there and how to schedule or make a good workflow for it. One of the other big things is I will create a free version that will allow you to do some testing in a limited capability. Not sure really where and what it will be able to do, but there will be some free version that you can use. Obviously, our goal is also both to make testing more proliferable, but also make people used to test with our tool, so they will hopefully want to upgrade to one of the other versions. Then we're creating a Professional Edition or something like that, a single use application that will enable you to do more testing, but just for a single user. Then there'll be some enterprise licenses where you've got the full testing capabilities, all the visits, all the tools, all the ability to do multi-user support, so you can run multiple users, run support on multiple databases. So you will be able to run it on the Oracle, or be able to run it on your SAP system 7.5. And then you would be able to run. So we found some of our customers wanted to run tests on multiple different systems. So you would also be able to run a test on both the test and development and verify that they look the same. So whenever you have done development, you would also be able to do that. So I would like to hear your comments and thoughts on this. So if you have any questions, do let me know.